No. That would be like. No, you move the thumbnail left into the corner or something. So, so this is live now. Well, yes, time. Cast your spell. No, fool me twice, cause I can see right through your so many lies.
Oh, oh, we didn't ask to share the
No
sound.
sound.
Oh,
Sorry. Oh boy, Aaron.
Yeah, we did it the same as
Right.
last time.
Sorry, Alex.
Share computer sound.
Looks me right dead in the eye,
Does that work?
and he lies. Yeah, he lies.
Did you get the last bit of that? You can hear my voice.
We will
It's a long name.
Sorry, let's go back to that. I don't know how to. You see what I mean?
It was working.
You think I'm crazy?
Screen sharing so we can.
Don't.
Sorry, I need to just. Sorry, this is all a learning for us. I just need to switch it off first.
Won't you listen to me?
Okay.
Sorry to cut the music like that.
We'll perhaps play it at the end again. Sorry, it was our error, and we should have known by now because this happened to us once before when we were sharing music and we hadn't. There's something you got to switch on or off. So apologies for. You saw a few minutes of Alex playing music silently.
Oh well. Hopefully, if you're watching later, you can have jumped through that.
Yeah, and we can play it again at the end to close again.
Yeah. Well, we've got to develop this if we continue doing these Fridays.
We've got to learn our tech skills a little bit better.
And actually, I just remembered last week, Martin Leaker clicked the link and went and sat in the guest waiting room, and I never noticed he was there. So eventually, he just thought, well, he obviously went away. But so hopefully, he might join us sometime. I spoke to Dave Weiss the other day. I wouldn't speak to him. We communicated, and he's doing that in Acapulco thing. But maybe next week or the week after, but we'll see. There's lots to talk about. These are incredibly exciting, interesting, fascinating times. There's so much going on in the world at the moment, and we will.
Conspiracy said Stellium has confirmed. You'll know what that means.
Yeah.
I'm just going to try and put the Zoom link in there.
So it's funny enough, I said in the chat, I'd had a conversation with Conspiracy Music Guru about having a get together in Spain in the summer. So maybe I'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's cool. And yeah, I just think that it's almost like, well, as I was saying to Alex earlier, it's like things are happening in the world so rapidly that, things are going to start moving faster and faster. The wars, rumors of wars, all sorts of things are going to be happening. And, things that will possibly make the 2020 period look like a training run. I think you know what I mean by that. And it seems obvious that the majority of people will still go along, even if they don't all feel as comfortable about going along as they did. But I would suggest more than 50% of the population, if asked today, would fall in line with whatever propaganda has been nudged their way. So that seems to me to be the nature of things, and as we see the incredible stuff happening in the sort of geopolitical sphere, the Trump effect and the Musk effect. These things are incredible moments in, could be like 1933, where people were super excited about what Germany was doing. And, the man with the little mustache was Times Man of the Year, 1933, I believe. So are there echoes of that time that we will look back on this time as being the preamble to something, more significant? But anyway, I think that, do we allow that? Do we spend all of our energy on that, or do we, as much as we care about that and want to be a light or a beacon or a person who's doing something in their sphere to change the trajectory, but first and foremost from within the cup. And so that's kind of where we're at with how we see it, is that there is fantastical stuff happening, and we could spend all day analyzing the bits and pieces about Doge, the revelations of USA, blah blah blah, and then what it means down the line, because they give with one hand and they take with the other. So there's definitely going to be a day of reckoning. I've even heard, I don't know if you've heard this, that they've floated this idea that all of this money they're going to save will mean that a proportion, 20% of it, could be given back to the people. Don't ask where the other 80%. Well, they say the other 20% will go back to paying down debt. They don't talk about where the other 60% will go. But anyway.
It makes me think a bit about when you say that, is like, when we were in that the last 3 years, I won't mention what it was. We all know, we all went through it. Certainly in this country, they were offering furlough, they were offering people payments. And it was kind of a sweetener. It was like, we're getting time off and getting money. And of course, now we know that people had to pay that money back. When power companies were giving you holidays, they're now asking for the money back, and people are really struggling to pay that money back. So it sounds a little bit like that to me, all this, like, we're going to give you this and we're going to give you this. It's like, it feels like a bit manipulative, personally.
Well, it binds. A lot of people will be cheering for Trump. And Nathan sent me a picture earlier of a tweet or whatever that Musk had made, saying that it's time to bring the ISS home. It can't serve any further useful purpose. I'm paraphrasing. Let's go to Mars. And it had like 50 million views and so on. They are really pushing this. Let's go to Mars, and it's going to be happening quite quickly because people already believe there are these super engines that can do things beyond what we previously believed was possible in outer space.
I find that quite interesting observation, because actually astrologically at the moment, Mars is very prominent in all our lives. We may not know that, but Mars has been in a retrograde since December. It only retrogrades every 2 years. It's retrograding. It started in Leo and it's moved all the way into Cancer, and it doesn't like being in Cancer. It's in detriment. Mars likes to, it's it's that forward movement in our lives. Of course, it can be anger and all those other things. It can be passion, but it's definitely that initiator in our lives. And it's been in retrograde, and then of course in Cancer, and it's been triggering emotions. It's been triggering our sense of security. depending on where it is in your personal chart, but it's certainly the collective. There's been this collective feeling. It also will feel a little bit like a push-pull in your life. So if you felt like I want to get moving, but I just don't seem to be able to.
Like the holding of breath. It feels like to me like the world is holding its
Yes.
breath. And
So-
maybe that's my perspective in it, because I'm been, holding my breath.
No, but that's a very accurate way of putting it. It's that like I'm ready now. I'm ready, but yet there's been this pullback, and obviously retrogrades are the opportunity for us to go and look at that stuff. So things like rage and anger and resentment and a whole lot of other emotions may have come up as a consequence, but that he says, let's go to Mars. You know, there's this really strong Mars aspect, and it's been, you know, it's been hanging out or in opposition to Saturn, which is also this kind of like, let's teach you a lesson, let's slow you down. So how that plays into that narrative, I'm sure it does on some level. So yeah, it's interesting that that's in the news.
Well, I think we're quite certain that the people who know how this place works are studying the stars with those big, Lucifer telescopes that they've got. So there's no doubt that what's happening in the sky is the signs and seasons, and they want to exploit that, manipulate it, delay it, take, there's any sort of options as to why it might be done, but and the timing of it. But for sure.
Yeah, I
that
mean,
makes sense.
for me, it's that this is all an invitation for us to feel, and that's really difficult because we all have programming around feeling, whether it be the male or the young boy was told it's not good to cry, or women, it's not good to be angry, or whatever your programming was or is around feelings, because I think that that's where our superpower is, that our feelings are what differentiate us from the AIs or the the more robotic element of this world. And when we can reconnect to that, when we can reconnect to our heart, I think we reconnect to our intuition and to flow, to spaciousness, which I think is what space is, to that space, to a deeper listening. I heard someone say, which is so beautiful, the mind shouts, mind being the ego, and the heart whispers. And for us to hear what the heart is saying, we have to create space, we have to create stillness. And most of the time we're in our minds trying to figure it out and trying to get somewhere, and we think our feelings and don't feel our feelings. So yeah, if there's been this sort of tension, this push-pull tension, it's probably that Mars effect. It goes direct on Sunday, you'll be glad to know. Just in time for us to have an eclipse, which will also bring up some stuff.
One of the mysteries of our world is exactly how the eclipse works. We were talking about black holes at the dinner table with Zizi this evening, and the idea that there is this pipe ending, this place where all energy is squeezed through, which we call a black hole. And then we were imagining, well, what would be on the other side of the black hole? Because that has to go somewhere, and it kind of blows back out the other side, and that's the spark of creation, I think. It's coming through the black hole. So that was a little segue.
Yeah, that's our often our dinner conversations. Zizi is incredibly
Curious, maybe.
Curious, but also he comes up with really philosophical questions, and I suppose that's when you're allowed to be in that free thinking spirit. Yeah, he makes us think, because he brings questions where you go like, oh, let's talk that through and see what the possibilities are, really.
Yeah. So yeah, the world is bread and circuses. I see a lot of that, and I I know that can entertain me, and speculation as to how this is all going to play out does entertain me, and I guess I am an optimist, and I'm looking for the catalyst to the thing that gets people to go, oh, we couldn't see, and now we can see.
I think we've got lots of energy in Pisces at the moment, and Pisces is that it's ruled, and it's in the 12th house. It's a lot of like surrender. There's a big letting go energy with Pisces. There's lots of activity in Pisces at the moment. And so I think there's an element of trusting that actually there's a much bigger plan, and that we can trust that. Just if I just look at the way the energy is going to shift over the next 12 months. And like I said, there's the nodes are actually, the North Node and the South Node are in Pisces Virgo. So there's a big emphasis on us returning to our true nature, returning to who we truly are, which is, although we're having human experience, which we have to be in that imperfection, but we're also these eternal beings, and and beginning to trust that there's a much bigger story here, which we've come to be part of. And not to get lost in too much of the detail and the game. You've got to be in the world but of it, and that does take an untangling, that does take a dissolving the attachment to that.
But that's an incarnation. We're all incarnated for something higher than simply what we.
And at this time,
the evolved ape story that they want.
It's not a happen chance that you just hear right now at this time.
It feels like we're nearing the zenith. It could be 20 years, like Archaic says, but.
Or 2000.
Or 2000 years. Well, I don't know about that. It just feels like there's in our lifespan, assuming we all get good and healthy, and we need to stay healthy, a good and healthy time, then I think that it's building up to something. And I mean, it's not to say like, the world went on after World War II. The world went on. It was just different, and people were altered. And it's hard for us to know that because we weren't in that, and we weren't aware of what was being done to those people. Our parents weren't, our grandparents weren't aware of what was being done. So we can't really know what it was like for them, but we see it now with COVID, the post 2020. We see how the world is altered. People have been altered from that event. And so it may be that after another seismic event, WWW, that the world continues, but
that's the thing, the part that I don't think we need to figure out. I think that's where the surrender has to come. And I know, obviously, maybe from the masculine point of view of being the protector and the provider, that's more of a thing, more important to say the feminine, who needs to be more in surrender. But I was listening to, I think it's a guy named Luke Story, and he was talking to a guy named Aaron Abka, and he was talking about, he was reminded that if you're on a football field, there's the two teams, and let's call them the light and the dark team, but they're both in the same field. And and if God is all, then he's both teams.
He's the stadium.
Exactly. So I think just to be reminded that this game is a game of duality, and that we can't have light without dark, or dark without light, and that actually maybe we have to be in the dark, or have to go through dark times for us to feel that contrast, or that push to look deeper, to go within, to heal, to see, to hear, whatever it is.
Down the valley of the, how's it going? Down the
even
valley
though
of
I
the
walk
dark,
through the valley
yeah,
of
dark
death,
Right up
fear
here.
no evil.
There is yeah, there is certain of that, and in some theaters you see quite a lot of that, you know, stuff that's been coming out of like the Ukraine and obviously
I think
medical
I
field.
think the ego and our when we
Uh,
come here tends to think of us as separate and on our own, and that's where we start to go into survival because we have to find a way to survive this experience, and we when you know the ego would prefer it to be that we stay in that state, but there is this returning, this like remembrance that we're not that. And of course there'll be all the stuff, you know, all
the
the
materialist program,
yeah, the
material
programming,
program,
the
material
beliefs,
program. It's material programmism. We're all materially programmed, but it's nature of being inculcated in a system in which this is all described as material, and the people around you who love you don't know it anything other than material. So we are in a material world and seeing it in a
but
material
that
way.
reminds me of the argument within this community is that we're trying to figure out something material and we're swapping one material for another material, and we must
They love their supermodels.
we must
Yeah.
prove that material, and if it can't be that material, then it has to be another material, and what if it's not? What if it's none of that and it's something else?
Yeah.
Something greater, something
Well, I mean, it's like
expansive.
trying to explain to people that, you know, your physical body is not all that is you. There is more invisible you that is very much you. And the same is true with the earth, is that there's you know, the bones of it we can experience, but there's much, much more to it that we can't. We get these clues with the lights in the sky, but we can't. We're these tiny beings on the skeleton of something, or the, you know, the body of something gargantuan. But it is much more than just the physical thing that we materialize. The light that we interpret as, you know, condensed matter or matter, which is just light. It's all frequency. So I just wanted to say hello. You know, I don't know, but I see actually that Just JP, hello, and Glyph, really nice to see you, brother.
Hey, we were just talking about you. Not talking about you, but referencing you.
Diet and stuff like that, and wondering how you're doing, etc., etc. And I'm in Dr. Ryan, Nated, and of course Nathan, the sniper. Good to see you, bro. And Rory, Paul Roy. Nice to see you. It must be late where you are. Very late. I'm hoping that Nathan, who you met, will join us. I'm hoping he will. He's a former airline pilot.
He's in Indonesia, so he's also
it's very late. Okay, yeah, so it's even later, like 3, 4 in the morning. So we do have a link in the chat.
Yeah,
if you want to come
put it in
and chat.
again, if need be.
Well, by Saturn says, I've got to speak in code, I think, because they took it's code 8. You know, there's a connection there with what's been going on the last few years. I don't need to talk about it right now. So hi, Ryan, and everybody else. Thank you guys for coming by. We'll make it a couple of hours long, assuming we get a few people to bounce around with. You don't want to listen to us gabbering on for 2 hours, I'm sure.
Maybe they do. I mean, I suppose.
If any questions, just throw them down in the chat. I've got a site of it here.
I suppose what Dave was saying.
Thanks, JP, we are well.
What Dave was saying in the beginning is, we can get caught up in the game and the detail, and then not
caught up in the detail,
and then not live and not and actually I think
where she, you know, like you go past the thing and it sets her off, and I'm not picking on old ladies, but it sets her off, and she's like, did you see what that driver did? And for like hours later in the day, she will bring that up, you know, like that it was so it was so much. And I think that it's like, yeah, but we actually had a really nice drive through the countryside. But did you see and how much traffic there was and so on? Was it a nice drive through the countryside? No, but that was that thing.
But that's
And
for
that's
me,
how-
in my opinion, that's our trauma that gets triggered. That's something in us that gets triggered, and I think that's happening to us all the time. And you know, I'll say this again. I think I may have said last time that even to feel joy is sometimes really difficult for us because, you know, once you experience a trauma, and when I say trauma, it doesn't have to be big. That can be really tiny. Then there are a whole lot of decisions we make about I can't have what I want. If I have what I want, I'm going to be abandoned. If I love someone, then they're going to leave me or they're going to betray me. If I open my heart, then you know, that thing that I fear is going to happen. I think those blocks, even financial, you know, there's just so much that comes up. And I think that's the whole point to the time we're in now. That is the awakening. It's to kind of be with all those parts, not get rid of them, not reject them, not shame them. It's like the return. It's like the, you know, the facing those parts of ourselves that are that we have kind of put in the dark room. I personally see that's what we see reflecting in the world. And once we are able to heal that and alchemize that, then actually that's where we start to see change. Or at the very least, we're not that old lady, you know, just spending a whole time not enjoying the experience, but rather, you know, being with that part. You know, I know I'll use a little example. I've now come to realize that I brought it in from a previous life, because that's how I see astrology, is that we bring either our familial or generational trauma with us or past life trauma with us, but that I carry this belief that I'm a disappointment. But then what happens with that is that life becomes a disappointment. I see through my eyes disappointment, and really it's that part of me that I've rejected or abandoned that I need to heal or bring back and love again, so that I can no longer be in that. So that's what I mean about a belief, really.
There is a sentiment amongst us. I think, I don't want to pick on, but I think in the truth community, in a high percentage of us are operating from a particular part of the trauma spectrum. And that causes us to cleverly mask, shun the stuff that had to be done to us in order for us to become materialist beings, as we all did. So I feel like, and the thing is that we often look to things on the outside to say that's my problem, but the root of it, just like allopathic medicine where they just put a cream on the skin, the root of it is within. And I think that's you know, the journey that I have to take. And in so doing, I think that to bring others along, well, that would be beneficial.
Well, I think the invitation is always there. I think whatever our trigger is, that's always a new invitation to kind of go, okay, what's going on here for me, and what part of it can I use? We're always being invited to see it that way or be with it that way. You know, life is a mirror. But you know, we all carry so much pain that we need someone to save us from that, or to change or to be different, so that we don't have to experience it. And unfortunately, part of this is that I read some poetry the other day, and it was a poem on the long dark. And I truly believe that we're in that time It doesn't mean that you have to be in that dark all the time. Not that I think dark is necessarily bad, like we're told, but it's a necessary aspect of this journey.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of like the sine wave, where there's a period in the light and a period in the dark, period in the light, period in the dark. And we are like that with both light and dark. And we are meant to be the good shepherd, steering both the light and the dark, the high and the low, because we are all of these things. So it's
like the dance, isn't it? It's like a dance. But I truly also believe that our birthright is joy. Our birthright is love. I think we are created from love. And again, I don't mean love is always this happy, romantic Disneyland kind of love. And sometimes love is fierce. Sometimes love has to be truthful. Sometimes love needs a boundary. Sometimes love is rupture. Sometimes love is painful. Sometimes it's bliss. Sometimes it's joyful. Sometimes it's passionate. So I think to be in flow but to have the highs is our birthright, and to find that harmony, and hopefully the sine waves becomes less like a heartbeat,
like an erratic.
and it becomes more flow.
I won't make any jokes about art stuff because it's not a laughing matter at the moment these days.
No,
So
no.
that's that's an expression of the darkness in our world, and we can continue to focus on that exclusively and let it consume us, or we can continue to understand the information that is available, try and inform those around us or in our communities or in whatever way, that would be through making music or whatever. Andrew's just going to sort out some admin here for a link if anyone wants to join us. But yeah, we can watch we can watch every element of this scam, or we can also build our inner resilience for this time, because we don't know what's going.
So Rory says, Jade asks, what signs do you think will become more apparent between people on the spiritual and the materialistic paths? When you say signs, you be able to see people who are more spiritual or people who are more materialistic? Is that, I assume that's the question. And honestly, I think it's going to be our senses. I think you're going to feel whether someone's maybe not so much materialistic or spiritual, but more that you just feel a connection, or you just feel a resonance with them, or you feel like you're in the same frequency, or it just feels comfortable to be around them. And it doesn't mean because you feel uncomfortable or they are quote unquote asleep. And I think I truly believe everybody has the opportunity, and I don't know what their journey is, but it doesn't make them bad, it doesn't make them wrong. It just means that that's where they are, and you are somewhere else, not better, not worse, just somewhere else. And so I think it's that feeling that that's person's at the same in the same place as you, and that's going to be different for everyone. I think we are electromagnetic beings, so we will generally be drawn to those that either are on a similar journey or that we need to learn a lesson from, because that's often, and I don't mean lesson bad. I don't think any lessons are bad. I think they're all opportunity for us to expand. Relationships tend to be that, where there are, for me, relationships can be the most spiritually expanding experience. So yeah, I think that's so.
Yeah, I find that an interesting question and provoking interesting thoughts. Because some people have said this, and of course it's hard to really gauge it, but that in the last 5 years, since 2020, the way that people are with each other has changed. And I think there's anecdotal evidence of that, but can we say that for sure? Um, and if it is true, which I think it might be, but if it is, then the world has, to a greater or lesser extent, sort of picked itself up and just dusted itself off and got on with doing what it used to do. So most people are back to doing their skiing holidays or their this or whatever their thing was, and trying to put everything behind them like it never happened. So do I think that there are other iterations of that then bring these people into greater sort of conflict or harm by taking things in the arm? Then I do think that we've got a situation where people may become more obviously like harmed. But I'm just worst case science fiction type of thinking on that.
I mean, I think that we do get very fixated on this journey. I do think that no matter what happens is a very controversial thing to say. And this, let me be clear, I'm not saying that the outside world or person or situation isn't doing something that is of ill intent, but what is it allowing me to see and return to and heal and dissolve and be set free from, or make a conscious choice about? And I think even those that have been harmed, it and I have family members that this has directly harmed, that this particular thing is directly harmed, and I can see how there is a real opportunity, in particular with my sister, for her to be empowered, to heal, to see, to return to something much greater. I see the potential there, and so I never really liked the doom. This is all going to end bad. I truly think that there are often solutions that we can only hear or connect to when we are able to be in our body. But I like to think that there is something magnificent possible. Yeah.
At the end of the rainbow.
Well, no. I mean, even if this has to go like to shit, which probably it's going to. I mean, the astrology this year is going to get crazy. We've got Uranus. It is the awakener, which has been in Taurus since 2018. It's moving into Gemini, and as far as I know, the last time it was in Gemini and it was in an alignment with Neptune, it was the D-Day. Is it D-Day or was it Pearl Harbor? I think it was. Did I say Pearl Harbor? Pearl Harbor. It was the last time Pearl Harbor happened, and so there's that, and Uranus causes chaos. It's the energy of chaos. It's a revolutionary. It kind of throws things up. That's shifting after being in there since 2018. Neptune, which is it dissolves the ego, and it's either illusion or delusion. It's very much the mind, but that's also shifting since 2011 into Aries, also coming up in the next couple of months. And Saturn will also be shifting. So there's lots of big shifts coming this year, and I truly believe that we're going to see another. But even the energy we're in right now, with the eclipse coming up, we're in the shadow of an eclipse that's going to be in Virgo, and then two or so weeks later, we have another eclipse in Aries, and eclipses are, I mean, some people feel them more than others, but they're normally an ending and a beginning that then unfolds over the year. And they're the nodes, so they want our highest. They're bringing about our highest potential. So yeah, I think this year is exciting. It can feel a little vulnerable because there's uncertainty, and of course uncertainty our mind doesn't like. It feels very unsafe to be in uncertainty. But I think it's exciting.
Well, good that Liz the Iron Maiden says this all makes sense to me. I'm a bit of a troglodyte when it comes to reading the stars, but I hear so much that can be aligned to events that have happened historically and matching with the stuff that Andrew describes in terms of things having a retrograde or an additional pull because of its position here or there. I think this is why back in the day, the women were revered for their reading of these things, and the men took instruction from that reading. So I think that Donald Trump and co are Musk may be a woman, who knows, but they are obviously being given their kind of marching orders by something cleverer than that they are telling them this is the time, this is the program, and we think that this program has been, I think this program has been planned because it's like a Swiss clock up there. It's been planned hundreds or
well, I mean, that's astrology really, is looking at patterns. That's essentially what it's seeing how these energies have moved and how when they join and are aligned with each other, that they bring about certain energy and certain experiences. And so yeah, it's just a cyclical thing, really. I mean, that's really the art of astrology, is the study of the stars. But I saw a beautiful thing today where it said, we are the stars. The stars are in our bones. We're connected. We're part of that. And I mean, for whatever reason, it's something that I feel and resonate with, and maybe that's just my medicine or my path.
Speaking of medicine, that's what this AI project that they've just announced, $500 billion possible, thing. Of course, it's going to be used for many things, but the one thing they were talking about was, curing or giving you needles for your, various illnesses. That's just underscoring what they've been doing for these years as being, A-OK. Not sure where I was going with that.
But we're in a little bit of a, this kind of time feels a bit like a lull for us too, that, like I said earlier, that push-pull. And so we've been sort of focusing on, doing the inner work, but also, how can we be in our healthiest versions of ourselves? And, because our bodies are our temple, they are the conduit, they are the very thing that spirit needs to move through. And and our nervous systems, I think, play a really big part in terms of our wellness or our illness. And so we've been that's become a little bit of a focus. It's a good time really we're moving into the spring, so it's coming out of that winter lull, although it doesn't feel like it right now, does it? With the weather like it is.
Yeah. Well, I've felt like, I do feel more sometimes, but I have felt like, my world was, taken from me, all the good connections I had from pre-2015 melted away, and maybe I burned them away by needing people to hear my message. And so we don't, I don't feel the need too much to really hammer people with that stuff. I'm much more inclined to, working together with people who are working through the other stuff, having come through the gateway of the level, unmoving earth that we.
So Jade is asking another question. Just that she says, do you think it will become two obviously different realities between awake and yet to awaken? I think that's probably already. I mean, there is bifurcation where there is a split. I like to see it as
kind of biblical, Jade, that it's actually been written about, that there would be a dividing of people. And I guess you could simply say those that become the technocrat type, maybe the AI infused society, but maybe it's not as extreme as that. Maybe it is that, people are mostly corralled into cities, mostly that there's a smart kind of grid monitoring everything. And then there's people who exist on the fringe of that, to a greater or lesser extent, can I envisage a situation in which the current establishment allows for a large scale setting up of a secondary nation outside of the confines of, or the rules of, say, the UK or whatever? I just don't see that being allowed, or being, that would be like, yeah, cause for major. And maybe that's what some of the wars are, is people trying to be outside of that.
I just think that when we do the work and we're in that connection. Now, when I say this, I don't mean this is about being in love and light. I truly believe we're having human experience, and that comes with all the messiness of being human and getting it wrong. I don't necessarily believe the wrong, right thing so much anymore. But, just learning and trial and error and feeling and all that stuff. But I do also believe that when we start to return to that, I think when we can listen, we can hear the solutions to whatever situation we're in. I think when we're in survival, then we're waiting for someone to give us the solutions. Whereas I think that we already know, or certainly there is a knowing, or a connection to something bigger that will guide you, that is guiding you, that life is already working out for you. It's that because of the separation, that perhaps we all have to go through, perhaps that's part of this journey, and we have to find our way back. But I just think that no matter what's going to happen, when we're connected to that, then we will know. We'll know what it is we have to do, and that we're always, there is a greater force at play, and that we can trust that. I think, I know that from my own journey, when you're very young, we stop trusting ourselves. And we've seen this with Zizi, right, where we could quite easily shut him down. And of course, if he'd had the normal childhood, then that's what we do. We eventually say, no, you're wrong. Even if, like, I'll use an example of, tonight he said, I'm not really hungry. And I could have said, well, no, it's dinner time, you eat your food, and we'll sit there and we'll have a fight about you eating your food. But he said, I'm not hungry. And so we now are like, okay, fine, you can maybe eat it later. But the more and more you do that, no, you don't know that you're you're not hungry. So, or like school, oh, I need the toilet. No, you can't go to the toilet. Eventually, what you do is you start to stop trusting yourself and hand that over to something outside of you, some authority outside of you, instead of knowing that you have that knowing, you have that connection to something greater, and that will guide you. And I think that's the remembrance, that's return. It's like returning to that, like that inner guidance, that it's going to take us through the journey, and we can trust that because we stopped trusting that. The world became unsafe when we were very little. We needed someone to save us. We stopped trusting ourselves because we were told we shouldn't, or we made that decision that we shouldn't.
And our forefathers were traumatized, so that vibration comes to us courtesy of a long plan to damage the pool. But isn't it exciting that we're here to say, well, we can address, assuage, face and come to put in a better place and release the energy that's as a consequence of that, those past events. I honestly cannot imagine that there are people that have not been. You cannot. It's just a rite of passage coming into this place. It inculcates a certain vibration in you that is part of a mission intended. Otherwise, just by happen chance, that this is the mission that you're on, to raise the vibration.
Or return to love. Return to love. To return to what you really are, and that's magnificent. It's powerful. It's love. It's and I'm not trying to sound all soft and soppy.
No, because it's also prepared for the stuff that's coming down the line.
Yeah, it's fierce. It's the warrior,
or other physical preparations that need to be. We're not here just to watch Netflix. That's really, and even if we're not, or YouTube videos. I mean, there's some great
There's
stuff.
a little bit of that allowed, of course.
And Nathan can maybe teach us about cutting some trees and turning it into useful firewood. But we really need to be doing our own inner work, and not just staring at that train running down the track. And because the Trump train is in full swing right now, and it's getting interesting to watch. And on the $5,000 thing, my thought was that it's a great incentive to get every Tom, Dick, and Harry to register in order to get the 5,000. So they're going to scoop up all of these names, and all of this data is worth way more than 5,000 for whatever reason. You might think they might want to have everybody's name in a single database collected, which would be more than just people who are on the IRS. Every Joe would be going, yeah, Trump, he's for the people. I'm going to go and sign up for my 5,000. I've never voted before, but I'll go and get my 5,000. Oh, well, we'll need your biometrics if you don't mind, Joe.
So Liz, the Iron Maiden, is saying, she asked, is intuition growing? I feel more intuitive the last couple of years. It's trusting your intuition. It can be challenging sometimes. And yeah, I think that's this reconnection to ourselves.
You on the distilled water again? You should clean your mind as well with distilled water, but what you were saying.
Yeah, I think it's being back in our bodies, and actually you feel there's that gut feeling. It's in your body. It's not in your mind. Our mind is there to carry out executive functions and to keep us safe. It's that's what it does, hypervigilantly looking for that tiger that's going to come and attack us. But the connection to the body and your feelings is paramount. I think it's paramount. It's where our intuition sits. It's where our
Yeah, I wonder this, Liz, whether like for me, and maybe the same, but for me, coming to the realization about flat Earth meaning much more than this ridiculous pancake that most people have in their mind. But that puts you in the center, puts us in the center, puts the Earth in the center. But I think it puts us in the center. And if you're of that mindset of, wow, I am like we all are, so I'm not going to try to think I have special needs here, but I am, of the divine spark. And sure, then everything is through me in a way. So, maybe that brings you to a greater awareness of touch and consciousness. This is coming into like,
our
wow,
senses.
I'm touching, I'm the metal or the brick or whatever, the bark of the tree. I'm touching these things and I'm experiencing the ether and the birds and all of this is, yeah, it's a very special journey that we're on, albeit for a brief period of time in the cosmic.
So there is a
Divine
placement at the moment where Neptune in Pisces, and again, it depends on where that is in your chart, but Neptune in Pisces is conjunct the North Node. In other words, the Neptune, the dissolver, is dissolving whatever our mind or our beliefs or our programming is around our spiritual self. And again, I'm not making it our spiritual self has to be this like, this woo-woo thing. It's this experience you have is very simple, but it's a feeling, it's a connection, it's a it's a connection to yourself. It's a loving yourself. It's and then others. It's an individuation actually. And so this Neptune North Node is at the moment very active in terms of how it's dissolving what is still there that is not allowing us to be in our high spiritual path.
Say that again.
Neptune is conjunct the North Node.
Yeah.
And the North Node is in Pisces, which is spiritual. It's also the healer. It's also the imagination. It's also intuition. So Neptune, the dissolver, is conjunct the North Node, which is dissolving that which is not allowing us, or the programming or beliefs that is still not allowing us to be connected to our highest path.
So stuff might be coming up for you right now.
Dreams, you might be dreaming a lot. That's Neptune is the dreamer, and so is Pisces actually.
Hey, Jolly man, nice to see you, man. Most people are fluoridated. It's sad to see. Yeah, but it has been a long winter, Liz. And ruled by Saturn, says Trump and Musk are ants just like us, only with more money and status. Yeah, they are, but also allow space for the idea that there are entities here who can present to us energetically as like us, but are not. So I also allow for that. They live.
I can also say today
Yeah,
that they can even be. I'm going to use this term. I also don't like it because it's also a bit woo-woo. They could be light workers. So in other words, what they're doing at the moment on the face of it is like, they are taking down institutions and doing certain things that, most people have been wanting for a very long time. I suppose where Dave and I said, if I'm right, is that it's like, yes, actually those need to come, there's no need to crumble. And maybe that was always the plan anyway, but it's what it gets replaced with.
That'll be waiting in the wings, that's
But
for
yeah,
sure. Whatever's coming is being designed and it's waiting just to be, just like, what do they call it? The Patriot Act, 15 seconds after planes and that happened and all that. 15 seconds later, they've not only discovered a passport that survived all of that for 3 days. 15 seconds later, they've got this what do you call it?
Well,
Patriot Act
and
already written. It's only 900 pages long, so you can expect that it's pre-AI, so they couldn't have done it by AI, but they're just really, really on the ball there in America. But then sometimes we say that they waste a lot of money. Yeah, well, government's inept. They're useless. That's why they can't get these things right about space and stuff like that, and they lost all the tapes and stuff because government's useless. You know what I mean? But
or the government needs to change. The government needs to be different, and government, we're waiting for government to say that they're going to do something differently, and again, it's for me that's the oscillation between I either comply or I'm rebelling against it, and for me the solution really is neither. Observe it, and I actually saw a post earlier by Alex Zek who said, it's okay to be glad that they are taking some of these systems down, but also at the same time in the knowing that there is an agenda. It's okay to be observing this, as it's being carried out.
People are being played, and we know that. We've all been played, but people are being played hard now, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And for me, I obviously I would love for the world to be in a different place than it is, but it is what it is. And so facing up to that, one realizes that it's just a matter of how many people will, take the other path, the bifurcation we were talking to Jade about earlier. How many people will take the other path? And when you get there, what is the detoxification because this reality is that. And so
when you get where
to maybe this other way of living, which is like, okay, I'm envisaging being in the country because
okay. I mean,
because
for me,
that's what
I don't think we have to get anywhere. I think that's what us humans think. I've used the analogy before, right? Where we're all trying to get to the other side, because when we get to the other side, then that thing that we think needs to happen or we need to feel, it'll happen when we're there. And not only we're trying to get to the other side, we're trying to find the bridge that's going to take us to the other side. And so we spend our lives searching. And I say this from my own personal experience of that's, I know that the seeker, right? I'm seeking that because it's like I need to find it. We're lost, we're lost in the wilderness, and it makes me think of a Bible verse, but we're lost in the wilderness and we need to find our way, and we need to find our way to safety. Once we find the bridge to the other side and we get to the other side, then it's all going to be okay. What if there is no other side? What if there's no bridge? What if you already are? So for me, there's nowhere to get to. Actually, when we are able to be, and be in that wholeness, then actually we're already there. In fact, we already are. It's just our mind that tells us we're not.
We're not. Yeah. It comes back to the driver, the one who is making a big fuss out of things that are happening in the roadway, and the other one who's taking it all in their stride. So you know that you can bring yourself, I hope, to a point where you can quite quickly kind of still yourself and go, whoa, I feel great right in the now, And for me, who, many years ago now, would have taken certain party poppers and things to have fun, to feel that amazing in the now. When that light, that experience is available to us in the now, if we are able to set aside the myriad programs that are interfering or playing over the top of that baseline, I'm all good. I was created by something magnificent, something much higher. or something much more magnificent, shall we say. And then I'm this expression of it, and I need to be able to just like live in that, love in that, be at peace with that, and try and navigate my experiences with this very crazy, dark, messed up system in whatever ways I need to, in order to navigate my, take my ship on its proper course. And that'll be different for each of us.
Yeah, and tough. It's not for the faint-hearted. To be with all of that and to heal all of that, and it's it's uncomfortable as shit. Some days, and of course what we're doing is we are all, and I say that assuming that others are doing the same, we're trying to fix it, change it, or get away from it because
So,
it feels
yeah,
so
yeah, exactly.
incredibly
Yeah.
unfamiliar.
Yeah.
Unfamiliar.
So that, coming back to the driver analogy, like if you're the driver and you now become aware that when someone cuts you up or whatever, you explode. If you become aware of that, it's still going to happen tomorrow, perhaps, or the day after on the road. However, you're maybe now going to start quizzing yourself as to why that is. And eventually you'll probably find that that goes back to your childhood, that reason why
Someone let you down, or
well, maybe you saw your father, do that, or something, occurred such that and so it is, but it's a journey that only just begins with the identification of it,
the awareness.
the awareness of,
Yeah.
oh, this is how I behave. So in a way, the next time someone cuts you up and you explode, it's almost like a gift. It's a gift.
And that might happen 100 times.
Because it's like, oh yeah, there it is, So partnerships can be like that, a bit of a gift in that because it'll set things against you, or you
friendships,
family
that bump into you. Actually, they are, when we start to see them as our teachers, and I know it's incredibly difficult because there's so much emotion entangled in those experiences that are stored in our body, that it's really difficult to be able to catch it, and that's okay. But the more awareness we bring to it, and the more we can start to be with that part of us that is still stuck in that past experience, the more we are able to get to the point where we can make conscious choice about how we want to respond to that driver that cut you off, or seeing that old lady seeing someone driving on the other side of the road. Yes, she might observe it, but won't spend the rest of the journey locked into that experience, because
what do you make it matter?
Yes,
What do you
totally
what do you ascribe to that? And I guess the same then comes to the meta game, what do you ascribe to all the kind of theater that we see playing out, of course we want to see an end to jib jabs, and we want to see people do time for for crimes against the humanity and so on. That would be kind of awesome, but in a way those are all elements and aspects of the same construct, and the reason those entities exist is because the construct. So we're kind of, in a way, it feels like we're stuck with it. We're stuck with, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but this is the way that Disneyland is set up this time around.
For it. We
set up like Pirates of the Caribbean, and that this is what we agreed to come into, and so we're going to sit here on our sofas and weep and bitch and protest about.
I don't want to be playing this game, but it's like you came here to play this game at this time, to be part of it for something incredibly big and beautiful and amazing, and
though I walk through the valley of death, I shall fear no evil. I think this is the valley. This is the valley of death.
Well, there's also the song "This Could Be Heaven" or "This Could Be Hell," and I really my heart goes out to many, 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 many millions of people who are living, and me included. It's, you know, it can be that mind prison of some hellish experience that my mind is in control of, but there are some that are experiencing horrendous. I'm not being flippant about the enormity of this experience and the potential of it, which I believe is available to everyone. But it's running so unconsciously, and it's being loosed by the outside for their gain. And this is why it is our responsibility, not like you're responsible. In fact, quite the opposite. It's like, can we be compassionate with ourselves and then with each other, that, wow, this is a big feat. This is a massive thing we're doing. But incredible at the same time.
Quite incredible.
It's a bit like how this earth is, right? And you were going to talk a little bit about how incredible this earth is and how you see the earth as it stands today, how you see it. And because we're talking spiritual, right? We're talking energetic, we're talking, because for me, you know, all this feeling stuff is energy, really, and we are energy bodies. I mean, we've had ayahuasca experiences where we've seen everything as frequency. So in that vein, instead of seeing this earth as something material, which obviously we do render it as material.
Yeah.
And a lot of the arguing going on is all about the material
Sense that there's material.
science of this world. Can you give us a little?
Well, no, wasn't that what I was saying earlier on about, you know, this is like you know, what we're standing on is a physical manifestation of the light that has been forced so dense that it is hard to the touch.
Yeah, but meaning more about the experience of like these Tauruses, and you were watching a really impressive video.
So I was watching Phuket Word the other day and talked to FPV Angel, and I highly recommend that if you have the time, spend an hour or so listening to FPV's model. It's a team collaborative model that he and a group of researchers have been working on for years. I've been following his work since he was on with Karen, the Sun and Moon, who I spent some time with recently. Lovely to see her. Anyway, so we FPV, he's got this model which is phenomenal. It helps to explain how we might see a 24-hour sun, but really answered a lot of questions for me when I saw it the other night when he was talking to Phuket Word, Nick. So I would recommend you go see that. But it's like, if I can just demonstrate a little bit on this map here, actually, just push this back a bit. So what have we got? So the land of the rising sun is over there. And obviously this is our equator through the center here. We all, most of us, Globers don't really want to acknowledge this, but we all know that the Russian mainland is blown well beyond its actual real size. It's much smaller in reality. So if you cut out the segments, like V shapes, cut out the segments of what I believe to be fake land, then you have to crunch all of that up a whole lot more. And then the same is true with Greenland. We know that Greenland is oversized by maybe 5 times or more. So you shrink that down as well, and it draws everything, the Canadas, which have probably also been tinkered with. You'd be foolish not to imagine that they hadn't done that. But all of the Canadas would be dragged a whole lot closer. So it makes for the way that they've cut the date line, if you look at the way that shows how the date line is odd and people don't actually go over it. And it was just a really fascinating model. you know, of how one might see a like a 24-hour sun in the south and the north.
Sorry, what is the Phuket
Phuket word.
word?
It's Phu.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the link. 'cause I
You can put, yeah, you put the link. Well, someone else in the chat could have done that for you. But anyway, in the meantime, imagine, if you will, my friends, that at the middle of the year, the very middle of the year, you've got this sun that's going around like this. And then as the European summer continues, this rising sun that comes in through one of 6 gates, which are Enochian, it comes in through these gates and does like a flip around, like a magnetic flip around the top, that gives us all nighttime at that point, because so these guys, as it's kind of coming right here, it zooms around the back, and then obviously 24 hours later, Japan gets sun again. But in the summertime, for the southern section, then that loop is going around the bottom here. This is like a magnetic thing. So it's not far-fetched. And I thought it was a really interesting alternative model. I've, you know, for many years not been certain about how the way that the way I see the sun could work on the model that we all in the flat Earth, well, most of us, the disk model, with the sun just doing this around it. It has always fallen short of being able to answer all the questions. You know, so to be fair, it's not like, and there is no perfect model that answers all the questions, but it's definitely worth considering. So go and check that out.
Do you know which one it is, just so I can?
Well, it's with FPV. I think it
doesn't-
would have been a live though. Click
Okay.
on the live.
Okay. This
Part
is
3 FPV, part 2 FPV.
So I'll do the part 1, and then you guys can find it from there.
Yeah.
So share
So we'll put that in the link.
link.
I mean, in the chat. Go and have a look at that. Not now, of course, because I'm sure I've got 1 or 2 more interesting things to say. And
Mhm.
who knows, maybe someone will join us before we wrap up tonight. I mean, it's, you know, I enjoy having the chat, but obviously to talk to in a way, but it's much nicer to talk face to face with someone.
You want to talk a little bit about
Oh yeah,
the possibility?
yeah. So I was talking to Alex Michael about the possibility of doing some kind of hangout, extended hangout, not festival, but like a next level
Meetup,
meetup.
but
You know,
but
where people are,
up level.
yeah, you know, people are, you know, where they are in terms of understanding the truth of the world, and want to come together. So I'm talking about ideas with him, and he's like, well, why don't we do it at my place? If we're only talking about a modest numbers up to about 50, we're only talking about that sort of numbers, then his place is large enough to accommodate us for a couple of days in September. And to sandwich that with like an evening meetup on the Friday down at the beach, right there where it's all awesome. This is where Alex Michael lives, obviously, that town, Javier. And then on the Sunday, and then on the Saturday and Sunday, to do like a breakfast down at the beach with everybody, and then go up to his house for a day of
Music.
maybe 1 or 2 30-minute, 2 or 3 30-minute presentations during the course of the day, and some freestyling from Alex, and maybe even some karaoke at some point, or some more other stuff.
But lots of chance to connect in person. You know,
That's the primary reason.
Well, one of the primary reasons for us even suggesting this is that we really feel like this has to be about thriving, and you know, and we have to start to choose opportunities to live.
And maybe
To
bifurcation means also, you know, coming together with people who are eventually going to form the beginnings, or maybe there are already the beginnings, but join others who have been moving along this way for some time. So no, there's a value in
well, it's a
people getting
very
together.
Aquarius as well. Of course, we've got Pluto in Aquarius, very Aquarius, where Aquarius is about my unique individuality, but also how I can be in community, how I can be in union with others, and this is about us unique individuals being able to come together and connect with each other in a more energetic way, not just on a screen. That's great and everything, but I think there's this opportunity to really have that coherence. We know the heart is this electromagnetic field, and to spend time and chat and maybe learn some stuff or be able to share some stuff. So yeah, that's
Stellium apparently. Stellium 7 has agreed to come along. He's got quite a busy schedule, but he's dropped everything so that he could come along. And he could talk on the heart and the frequency of the heart and the resonance of the heart, and maybe how it connects to music, which is something that's close to Alex's heart.
But we've just started the planning bit, so we don't have all the details fixed yet.
No,
but
watch
we
the
thought we'd
space.
put that out there, and
It's probably likely to be mid-September, and location will be made known to those who book their tickets, and I think have probably answered one or two questions to clarify that they are genuine in the flat Earth mindset, at least. So that's probably what I'm saying. But yeah, that would be fun. It would be and Alex, Michael, and Shelley are very gracious hosts, and we would set up a barbecue there, and
and hopefully have some other people come along. But like I said, we've just started the conversation. But yeah, it's in 6 months' time, so it gives everybody a chance to try and see if they can see that happening. But yeah, we just wanted something good. I mean, that's really what these Friday night lives are, that we can talk about stuff that is up leveling and
lighthearted.
Yeah.
Did you see what Trump did today? I'm just kidding. But it is great theater,
And some of it's very funny.
And
let's be quite honest.
And
it is funny. Some of it's hilarious.
The frogs don't know it. Anyway, so that's that. Is there anyone wanting to come and join us and chat? I don't know if I would know if anyone was actually in the thing. I think it would tell me. I don't think it told me anything like that. But yeah, I'd go and go and check it out, how this could be quite viable. And I don't want to be like, oh, I've told you so. But the idea that all of this stuff at the bottom is cold down here, and all of the stuff at the top is cold, but we don't, on the sides of this, east and west, we don't really have that.
Well, there's two comments there, one from Jollyman and one from Ryan. I don't know if you want to read them.
Jollyman, nice to see you
We're
again.
talking about something.
8 counter-rotating suns on the flat Earth in the 4 corners. Sundogs, crystalline firmament, prisms, apparent sun, circular vision. You should come and talk about that, Jollyman. 8 counter-rotating suns on the flat Earth in the 4 corners. You know what? I allow for something in my own, not that I have conceived of that particular one, but I allow for there to be some wild ways that the lighting system works in this place that would blow our minds if we, and that what they cleverly did was they knew that if they created a map that kind of patched that movement together, we would never know that there was 8 counter-rotating suns. even the timing of flights and things would be such that we would miss such an observation, that they wouldn't allow flights to travel at a particular time, which is why all of that stuff is so tightly controlled.
I have to say this quickly about Dave. One thing that he has taught me is that he is so open to listening, doesn't necessarily agree, but he's open to the possibilities of other people's viewpoints, and then he spends a lot of time making sense of that, and we have this term in our lives, which is that has to be on the table, and just allowing possibility, and that's in your own personal life as well. Is our program wants to keep us very limited in a box. Like I said last week, the ego loves a box. It likes to know. So I see that what we see is with the globe and the flat earth is just like one material to another material, and not being in that sort of mystery. I said today, I think perhaps that's why women don't get into too much of the cat fighting, because it's like we can be in more of that mystery, more in that sort of surrendered, not quite sure what it is, but it's all possible.
Whereas us guys, we want our supermodel.
It's the logic, we have to know the logical. It's got to be facts, figures, and the logical mind, and that there are these possibilities. Right?
Yeah, and then Ryan says the best explanation or model he's seen is from Lindsay. What's his surname? Harris or something.
Is that the Australian guy?
Tomb of Illumination. Here's the link. Well, my first communications with Lindsay were probably 2020, where I actually wanted to interview him because I found his ideas fascinating back then. And I wanted to interview him, but we were in like a little bit of a messy point at that point. We were just on our way to South Africa.
2021.
Yeah, I didn't pursue that. And now, since he's exploded in a lot of people's mind that he's rejected me recently for having a chat. Yeah, I mean, as I say, for years now, I've been fascinated with his mind on these things. I do find him quite arrogant with it, and whilst I agree with him on the thing, I think it kind of illuminates what we're talking about now today, that you might be really on the cutting edge of reimagining or rethinking or re-understanding or remembering the physical world, or our way of interpreting the physical world, but not the internal spiritual metaphysical world,
which is
the
infinite, and which is infinite, right? So if our spiritual world is eternal and infinite, and actually comes with a certain amount of mystery and not knowing and trust, deep trust, then that has to play out in everything, that we can't know 100%.
Well, I think Lindsay, I think Lindsay Harris or something. Anyway, he's a similar age to me, and I think that he has been hurt. He's a smart guy, and so him pushing this in, like a lot of us, maybe even when we were young, we were smart enough at 7 and 8 years old to go to the teacher, you know what, I'm not sure about that. And the teacher go, don't be ridiculous. And you were put in your place in a way that you cannot believe. And so he would have been one of those put in his place, despite kind of having questions that didn't sit with the dogma. And so he's expressing that now from a place in his childhood wounding and I mean no harm by saying that, just I think that this is where we're all at with is that we are all, like we say, if you harm the puppy, it's going to shape the adult. And
well, they actually say that the one of the biggest wounds for the masculine is not being heard and therefore respected. And for the feminine is not being seen, and therefore unsafe. And you know, that can obviously, that's nuanced, so that can play out in different ways for people. And I know from my own wounding, and then as a way of protecting myself, you know, the belief that I'm wrong, or wrongness, means that a mechanism of being safe is to know and to be right, and you know, to be able to sit with not knowing, or being a learner, or even getting something wrong is one of my biggest areas of growth. So I have compassion for people who carry that wound, and how difficult it is, you know, because it can be, you know, I know the ego, it is a matter of life and death to the ego, and so we will hold on so incredibly hard, like tight to the knowing and to the being righteous.
Andrea does work with people to help them address their
well, it's our traumas, where the root is. To go back to for me with astrology, I can go back and perhaps see something that you brought into this lifetime, but certainly from this life's experience, we can go back to in utero, really. It's there, it's in your memory, it's in your body. And I do that from having journeyed through that myself, and still am, and will still continue to. I believe that is one of our biggest.
We're always on the journey, man. I don't know that this, you know, anyone could want to, you know, in fact, the further you go along this journey, I sense the less you want to make it all about getting to the finish line, more about, you know, just embedding and deepening practice and behavior, and
And also allowing possibility, because the moment we say it's this, or the moment we say it's that, then we've said that's it. I know it's fixed. There's nowhere to go. But the moment I'm in infinite potential or infinite possibility, you know, it's like the universe meets us where we're at, and if we're at in that box, then that's where we're going to be. And so for me, that's for everything. It's like there's possibility in everything.
Awesome. Well, there's possibility that one or two people that are in the chat would like to come to Spain, so we'll definitely make you know, we'll do a little bit of promo for it, but it's not like we're looking to have a massive thing.
Yeah, there will be limited numbers, because
and it won't be like super expensive or anything, but obviously there's going to be some people a flight cost and a few nights in a hotel accommodation. We might try, and if there's enough numbers, we might try and do like a group booking on a large Airbnb type thing, so that a lot of people
a couple
could like bump together, you know, and make it a little bit more intimate.
But we'll come up with a few ideas. Like I said, we've only just sort of started, so but it's good to hear that people have an interest in coming.
So, and I saw that Liz went from Scotland to Flattoberfest last year, and if I'm not mistaken, there will be no Flattoberfest this year, 2025. So
as far as the last time I heard, there wasn't. I don't know if anything's changed. I'm not hooked into any of that really, but
it'll be, and for people that are, you know, big supporters of Alex Michael's music, it'll be an opportunity to, you know, hang out a bit, but also be there when, you know, he kind of all of a sudden does a little set out on the balcony kind of thing, you know. It's like, it's makes for really cool evenings.
Yeah, we've been fortunate enough to have that time with him and Shelley, and yeah, they're, like Dave said, they're gracious hosts, and it's, you know, hearing him in person, and it's a very rare thing because he doesn't really do live performances too often. So it's incredible that he's agreed to be part of it, and of course have it in his space. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So Red Herring says, my question is, how do we address traumas and heal them when this realm is an ongoing trauma fest? Well, let me, like, if I may first say, like, if we go back to the analogy of driving a car, for someone who arrived in Delhi for the first time and they had to drive through the center of Delhi at rush hour, that would be like a trauma. But for someone who's been riding through the streets of Delhi for 20 years and is nimble and knows the kind of the way that people drive there, it's not a trauma, you know. And so that, in a simple way, I think that, you know, you know, if I came out of your cupboard at night and, you know, you're just about to fall asleep and I came out of your cupboard and said boo, you know, that would, the first time I did that would be super frightening. But after the fifth time, I'd be like, okay, now you're annoying. And, you know, eventually I'd be like, just piss off, you know, I don't need you coming out of the cupboard. So I actually put a lock on the cupboard. And you can't get out. You can't get out now. And so, you know, in a way, maybe, you know, I'm just trying to maybe throw the optimistic, you know, approach to it, that we don't, we see, and I, you know, I'm not immune to it. I read comments in comment sections about people being harmed by things of 2021 and 23 and all of that. And we knew at the time what people were being put through was inhumane. People who were losing loved ones and having to never see them again on their, you know, and just be disallowed from seeing all these sorts of things. There were so many things that were done to people. And then, of course, all the conflicts and all the way that the system has tricked us financially. All of these things, poison in the system, water, air, food, you know, the extension of what you might call, you know, some kind of, you know, tyrannical kind of control system. You could call it that. You know, the extension of the powers of that. All of these things, you know, like.
Can I offer?
They're all in the, yeah, well, they're all the kind of the traffic in New Delhi at that busy roundabout intersection. So you throw your.
So I have, maybe it's slightly controversial, but this is where I stand on that, is that, well, firstly, actually my healing and then training and also astrology has helped me really see this. It doesn't mean that I'm human. It doesn't mean that I don't still have experiences that feel painful or have grief or sadness or all those things. I now see what's happening on the outside as a mirror, as an opportunity for us to see. It's the same as in a relationship. Really, we are, until we have awareness or consciousness, we are like these little children in adults' bodies that are coming and being triggered by our partner. The little parts of you are being triggered, especially if you've decided to be intimate with, and I don't mean intimate as in physically intimate. I mean intimacy as in you are in a very close relationship with someone. It can be friendship, it can be a family member, it can be a business partner, business colleague. And the world just keeps on offering us these mirrors and these opportunities. But of course, what we do, because we're in victim consciousness, is it's always, this is doing it to me. And again, I'm not saying it isn't, but it's like that life is our teacher, and so are people and experiences. And when we can see it that way, then the only reason we give each situation a meaning is because we already have a trauma wound there that is a memory.
Informs
It informs the moment. So actually we are always living in the past. Our past is running the show until it is brought into consciousness, until it is brought into wholeness, until it, and is it easy? No. And is it quick? No. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely.
And do we distrust the authorities and, you know, things in general out there because of how much misinformation we know we've been fed? I think
even that,
years.
Even the misinformation, even all that stuff, the betrayal starts so young, but it can even be past lives. Like I think women carry as part of their lineage a deep wound of persecution. And part of that is where the unsafety comes, and maybe even where the whole movement of the feminism comes from it, because it's that, like, I will be my masculine because I have I need to protect myself. That's a very deep conversation, so we won't go there.
No, but in a way, it's, although it's only Bon and maybe Liz and maybe one other, you know, woman listening in, and it's mostly guys that listen to this channel. I think it's information that guys need to know, that women have been set upon over the millennia, and they are not operating from their most natural place either. And so for us to enable that, we do need to provide them with the cover. That's what the man is masculine is for, is to provide the cup,
protection, containment.
The container.
But it works both ways, doesn't it? Because the woman also has to allow it, and so it has to be in surrender and vulnerability. So it's a complex thing, but the opportunity to heal that is there. So just to go back to how can we heal something when the outside is traumatizing? Well, I don't believe that it is traumatizing you. I believe it is using your trauma and looshing it. So in other words, it's manipulating the trauma that is already there, maybe re-traumatizing you, or it feels like a re-trauma. But when we start to see every opportunity as an opportunity, every experience as an opportunity, even if it is to take our power back, even if it is to put a boundary up, then that's when we start to heal. But whilst we remain the victim, then we're always going to be in that state of weakness. And so for me, there's that. I think that life is our mirror. I'm not absolving anyone who does anything bad to anyone. That is their responsibility to look at, and there are consequences for harming. The other point is that when I look at someone's astrology chart, I can see possibilities of stuff that's been brought from previous lifetimes, or karma that needs to be addressed, or where there is a wounding, or where something's going to be more difficult in this lifetime. And they're all meant for our highest up-leveling, for our highest expansion, for that's already there when you're born, as far as I'm concerned. Your natal chart is yours from the moment you are born, and so it's almost like you've agreed to come and have those experiences.
And talking about experiences, hi Tony Wickham, nice to see you, but sorry to hear of your brother passing 2 years ago after he had 2 T's in his arm, and the Jolly Man had pretty much, it seems, the same experience. So those are really poignant examples of, sorry for your loss. They're poignant examples of the the uniqueness of our journeys to come through the other side. I know we are eternal beings, and that we leave this incarnation and return to that eternal essence. That's what I know. And so not in a rush for there to be any kind of purging. Seems to be some of that happening.
But
But,
it's also
you know, this is
it's also
what-
understanding why our family members, because it's I've got a sibling who had those special measures and she's 2 years older than me, she's 53, and she had a stroke at Christmas time, and we have no doubt that that's the cause. That I think often there has to be a perfect storm. It's not just simply that, there is a whole lot of other factors. But I also can have compassion for why she made the choice to, because I do believe it was a choice, even though we didn't believe, a lot of people didn't believe it was a choice. But why they made that choice, what is, how we've been programmed. No, we'll go back to a conversation we were having earlier with a friend. We spoke to a lady who told us about her daughter who her school, if the child has 100% attendance, then they will give them a cupcake. And if for any reason they're off sick, this little girl was sick for 1.5 days
in the term.
In the term, then when it comes to the end of the term, which it has been recently, when they hand out the cupcakes, she won't get one, and she didn't. She didn't get one because she missed 1.5 days. Genuinely sick. Another little girl had chickenpox for 2 weeks, and she was off, so she also didn't get a cupcake. And can I bring this up because it just shows the level of program. We can blame that on the schools, but this is a societal thing. This is something that us adults are because if I'm honest, I see that in the way that I have parented in terms of shame and reward, and that's because of my experience, the trauma that I carry around that. And so I understand the unsafety that people felt, and yes, they were manipulated, but which is why I say looshing. They will use people's trauma. But I understand why my sister and others made the choices that they made with compassion. And yeah, it's just it's dreadful. I think that all of this is happening, and everything that's unfolding is all part of a much bigger thing.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's unfolding, Jolly Man and others, you know, is probably something we can never really be fully aware of in this lifetime, you know. And again, I don't wish any shortening of someone's time here. But I know not these things. They are beyond us. And the litany of horrifying things that have been wrought upon people through the generations, we can barely, you know, scratch the surface on. And, you know, they're happening in places that we will never see them. And you know, and awful torment, awful torture, you know, and so on. So in a way, maybe what we've seen over the last few years is the sort of the veil coming off of this thing, and it's becoming more and more evident.
And it will become more and more.
Yeah, but if you think of yourself as the general on the battlefield of your life, and you're looking down on the groups of casualties over there and the winds over there and what have you, you know, what are you being blown in the wind by the vagaries of the conflict, you know, unfolding as it must, you know. And again, I'm not the one that would want that, but that's what is going to happen. It's going to
Well, in the
unfold.
case of my sister, she has a real opportunity to take her power back when it comes to her health, and it's interesting because she's now sort of because of that in the medical system, and is incredibly frustrated because she had already started um to kind of be more in her power in terms of the choices she was making about her body. And that's a journey for her. But I see that as an opportunity for her to more and more decide and also know how incredibly powerful she is, and that her body wants to heal and can heal, is trying to heal her all the time. And that's what our body is constantly trying to do, is trying to find homeostasis, right? It's constantly trying to keep us safe and keep us healthy.
Yeah, and I think that the earth is all this, man fiddling with things. I can't, you see some of these, I've said it before, but fields and fields and fields and hundreds of acres are black mirrors pointing towards the sky. This is solar power. And you think, is there an ulterior motive? Because this, the people that run this game are so ahead of the game that what they created in America for the last 4 years was probably on purpose to create the antithesis. We want you, bumbling Biden, to go in and act your way through the next 4 years and just bring about all these insane rules about rainbows and people, girls and boys mixing in the toilets and all of these things. Girls in men, in men's sports. I mean, men in girls sports, just crazy stuff. And they brought that in on purpose because it was like, yeah, we'll certainly we can inflate the people that are crying in the streets about, being, misgendered and blah, blah, blah. And then a few years later, when people are riled up enough about it, we're going to remove all of that and he will get all the credit. So it was created to be brought down. I'm not just talking about
that we're in a spiritual war, right? And really, it's about us returning to who we truly are. I'm very.
Zizi's in the chat, just by the way. It's Zizi in the chat.
He's also on the train feed.
Yeah, he's obviously logged in from another device. That's
It's
funny.
me, Zizi. Hello, Zizi.
Nice to see you, little guy. Yeah.
He's hanging out with his brother.
Yeah, and he likes caps. Yeah. I think Red Herring Media, you've got some interesting ideas, and I do wish you well with your journey. I think that you've got, obviously I don't know you, don't think, but like we project the light that is the core of our DNA, which holds our genetic memory. I kind of like that idea. And yeah, FB, yeah, FB is out. Facebook is out of control. Yeah. That's totally. I see CVAs all the time in the ambulance photos. Oh, CV cardiovascular stuff, right? I know, and I've seen loads. And the new heart attacks, clots not narrowing if arteries, not narrowing of arteries. Not narrowing of arteries now. Clots and not the narrowing of arteries, which
Well, I
is,
mean, that's
like what they throw in lifestyle choices and so on. But
yeah, well, that's definitely my sister.
It seems to me it's one of those amazing things that they're able to keep it out of the public discourse to a greater extent. I do see little glimmers of hope, but again, it's like, look how long they strung the 9/11 crew along, and even now, I'm not sure. There's been promises of opening certain files and showing people the truth about this story or that, and I would be amazed if they really pointed the finger at the true perpetrators. That would be wow, that would be quite a thing. But
Haven't they released stuff before, and it's so heavily redacted that
well,
know,
that too.
yeah, you can't really see it anyway.
yeah.
So
Yeah, no, you are right for mentioning what you mentioned there, Jolly Man. Yeah, Tony, your family hates you for telling the truth about your brother's passing, and I think about this one all the time. Fortunately, in the case of Andrea's sister, she was aware that she'd made a mistake. By the second time, I think she was like, there's something wrong here.
and interesting, she was having panic attacks when she was going for them, so
So,
she clearly knew that they
yeah.
were not something she needed to do.
Yeah.
But her mind, obviously, this is our programming. We need to do
Yeah.
what we're told, and of course they were saying there were all sorts of things you couldn't have if you didn't. So
Take your
and
toys
then
away.
again, I know that there is so much deprogramming in terms of being obedient, and and the belief that we need safety from the outside. There's a whole lot of reasons.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you're still happy, Tony, and good for you. And I think that's the thing, is that if I'm still in the argument, and I've what's the word? I've been nibbling at that in Facebook the last few months, where there's all these flat Earth Facebook groups, infiltrated with people who hate the idea of the flat Earth, and they're just hurling abuse and all of that sort of stuff. I could spend, and I did in the early days in 2015, 16 maybe, spend a lot of time in that argument. I kind of said this last week, I think, as well. But I could spend a lot of time in that argument, and that becomes me. And that argument is so strong and so powerful now that even the haters of the flat Earth theory are going to be talking about it a lot over the years ahead, months ahead. They're going to be talking about it a lot, and they will be in that way spreading the word. And so, that's going to continue, and people are going to, in the bifurcation, people are going to go, hey, you know what? I see that this whole system is a complete scam. And it doesn't mean you necessarily live on the land, but it does mean that you cut ties wherever possible with the system's control, its food, its thinking about who we are.
I don't know that it's just that. It's more about healing, and if you're still angry with something, or you're still bitter about something, or you're still wanting to have a fight about something, then you're not free. You're still you might have swung from being obedient to, but you're not free. And freedom is when you're able to actually be in that peace. And I'm not saying it's all about peace, bliss, and joy all the time. Of course not. We're having this human experience, which is, going to offer us all sorts of experiences to grow. And but I think you've got to question why, be curious why you're giving your energy to that. What is still needing feeding in you?
Well, I tell you what, I'm needing feeding. I'm starting to feel a little bit hungry now, and we've been running this call for 2 hours. No one seems to have joined up today. I mean, joined in to chat with us. So maybe next Friday, we can do it again.
Yeah, we're as much as we can. Obviously, there might be a few breaks here and there. Dave's turning 57 on the 9th. In fact, I was remembering that it was 2 years since we did the Brian Stavely. Brian watches this little Brian. Well, Ryan's take a leap out. Brian's book. He's decided to stop giving so much energy to the internet and focus a little bit on things that he can do in his life to make it better. And so good for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was 2 years since that call. So that's next weekend, but that's a Sunday, so that's no big deal.
We're going to do this Alex Michael's house. We're going to crash his house and have a party in September for Flat Earthers. Have some fun. Jolly Man says the Flat Earth isn't a theory. I completely agree, but when I refer to it, if that's what you're referring to, as the flat Earth theory. It's because, you know, flat Earth theory doesn't really include necessarily the spiritual element. You can be a flat earther like Jaren, who, you know, was like this. I don't think there's a spiritual element to it. It's a flat earth. Whereas for me, you know, it's so much more than, you know, so the flat earth theory is how the earth might work, but we don't know exactly how it works. So it's a theory is, you know, that obviously is not a globe. It's a theory to kind of
Well, you
offer
can
something
offer it's
about it.
not, but you don't necessarily know what it
Yeah,
is.
and it's this metaphysical, deeper than religion will take you, and deeper
Yeah,
than
man.
straight flat earth will take you. It's this metaphysical,
Mm,
you know, expression,
mm,
and we are within that a metaphysical fractal of the whole expression. And so, how do we play in that? No matter what you want to call it, it doesn't really matter to me. But how do we play in that, knowing that we are that, that this is that higher thing, and we are the expression of that higher thing, and this life cannot be seen simply through the lens of the monkey, evolved banker, you know, servant or whatever. That's nothing. That's the ego talking and being given a layer, a veneer of doctor and lawyer and what have you.
Well, it's a bit like for me, you know, healing can't. I think it's a great start, but you know, talking therapy is just bringing awareness, and I think the same is the sort of the needing to be figuring out what this earth is. It's a great start, but there's so much more that needs to be embodied, um, and what it means in a much bigger way. I used to say back in the day today, now you know it's flat, now what? Or it's flat, now what? Because it's like, okay,
Yeah. So what is it? What difference does it make?
yeah, you know,
Other than you
it
being
has
lied
to
to,
mean, yeah, it has to mean so much more. And so the journey for us has been something so much bigger, and that still continues for us.
Yeah.
Actually, for me, it's more I know, the more I don't know.
The more you know, you don't know. Yeah. Well, and maybe the more humble, you know, we can become, you know, because when you're in the fight for the flat Earth, you know, it's creating that combative expression of self. When you're in the fight for the Ukraine or the other, you know, some of the other things, you know, you're in that combat. And, you know, see, Red Herring was saying, you know, we've got to start outing the ones who are playing multiple roles on the world stage. And it's like people are they're so enamored by the roles that they're playing and the people, you know, that the act. They're so enamored by that. You're the one standing in the style saying, "This is just a show," and they're going, "Boo! Shut up! You know, sit down," throwing popcorn at you. And that's where we have to maybe mature in this journey, is to go, okay, I see they're in, you know, they're in the
Have
trance.
awareness. Have awareness.
Yeah, if they found their way to the exit, then from having heard me say something, they find their way to the exit, then I'll be there waiting to help them through. But I know now that the majority are to be deceived, and that's not to, I don't need to weep about that. That's okay. You know, we're all just participants in a grand experience here. We don't have to fear it, or fear that without them coming awake, you know, without them letting open the gates of Shawshank prison, you know, that we can't get out. Well, we can get out, as Andy Dufresne showed us. And we recognize that perhaps the prison needs to be there for the majority.
For the contrast.
For
the contrast.
And for at the end of the day, if there was no stadium and it wasn't filled with people, then your game would have almost no value. You know, there needs to be people in the game, and that doesn't mean that all of them are going to play on the pitch, and all of them are going to score the goal.
And I personally think that freedom is an inside job.
Mm.
And it's
Mm.
no one's going to give it to you.
That's exactly what Herring Media said, which I do remember meeting you in Nottingham now. Thank you for reminding me. That it all is an inside job. It damn well is, it's an inside job.
And
like,
it's tough
it-
to
it-
work
the
because
ego
it's
wants to go that
yeah.
I can stand in the street, shout very loudly, and change the world, and I cannot. And people have spent quite a lot of money, and in fact, the more that you have, the more sway that you have, the more likely that your sway is going to be co-opted by much more powerful entities, and they will shut that down. So it's not to say, oh, we shouldn't be getting together, doing things, encouraging a different way, and maybe informing other people. But there is like a beating your forehead against the brick wall point where you go, you know what, I'm getting down to the bone here. I maybe should like back off on that a little bit. And
Well, also again, get curious about why it is that it's so important to you to save everybody or to out everybody. Get curious with that. What is it that I need by doing that? I think Kelly Brogan talks about her journey of activism was that she felt like if she saved everybody else, then she wouldn't actually have to save herself. So it's just about that curiosity about actually, what is it? Why do I need to do that? What is it that I am needing from that experience?
yeah, and it's all a stage, as Leafy says, and the reason you're the observer perhaps of the theater is that, okay, what are you going to learn from it? Are you going to be like I mean, you see it maybe with some of these Disney or Pixar type pictures for films, that they have 2 or 3 layers of meaning, and the child of 5, 6 years old is watching that and giggling along while the parents are sniggering, going, you see that, the children didn't see that, but we saw that. And so when things are happening in the world, such as to frighten and beguile the children, are you being beguiled, or are you going, I saw what you were doing there, but I'm not going to play, or I'm going to sidestep that, or when such a thing happens, I'm going to take an approach that seems more suitable, or coming back to what we were talking about right at the beginning of the conversation, where my senses are. I am listening to my senses. I am quiet and still in myself, and I'm listening to myself. And now I know the right action for myself.
Well, you're
in
able
this
to respond
situation.
rather than react. And actually, the work that I do, actually, you're able, once you bring consciousness or awareness to the stories that your mind is telling you, whether that be beliefs or mechanisms to keep you safe, you start to become an observer of your mind, because your mind won't stop, just like the world's not going to stop. You just become the observer, and then from that place, once you observe it, then you can respond. And normally it's a response from something much deeper and intuitive, rather than, like I said earlier, the mind screams really loud and the heart whispers.
But I think that we need to have come through this journey. It's like your ego is requiring of you to go out there and do this thing, such that when you come through the other side, you can go, but I took the action, I did the thing, I stood my ground, and I represented humanity or mankind or God or whatever. I did that, and I was righteous and proper in my doing of that. And then when you put your feet up one day at the end of the table, one day it's all coming to close the book. You go, "Oh, well, but I've added some value, and I've raised my own vibration."
I also want to add that none of this is about getting it right or getting it wrong. It's not about perfection. It's not. This is a human experience. This is us all trying to do this life thing. I think the biggest shift for me was, no one's coming to save me. I have to save myself, and that was a shift for me, because I'd been in that, you know, it's someone else's fault. It's not my responsibility. And it is totally my responsibility. It's not my fault, but it's now my responsibility. And I do that with compassion rather than shaming. And even that I don't always get right, you know. I'm in my whole story and the whole experience, and you know, so it's not about being perfect. It's about, you know, okay, there's a rupture or there's an experience, it's a bit messy. Okay, now what can I learn from that? How can I be responsible for that? And then repairing.
Nathan saying nice discussion. I don't know that that's Nathan from Australia. Nathan, nice to see you, Mr. Mensa. Nice to see you. Just drop by. Charlie Man's talking about the Milliman's fake meteorological centers, repeating cycles of 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, look, I think that we will call it time for today, and we will do it again in a few weeks' time. And hopefully, you shared this, given it the like, the thumbs up, and whatnot. And if you do want to talk to Andrea or I offline, and you know, Trinity for Man on Gmail, the email. So until next time, my friends.